Hey there, YouTube. Good to be back. It's been a little while since our last video. We've been through a bit in my life. Couldn't be more pleased. Underwent a back surgery. Had a discectomy and a laminectomy done on my L5S1 disc, and for the first time in 30 years I'm not in pain, and I'm very, very pleased with that. But on to our Deere 757 and the Kawasaki V-twin motor on it. We've just been picking at it, piddling with it here and there whenever we can. Documented stuff here and there. I probably got a couple videos worth right now. Honestly hadn't had much the energy to do the actual production. But I hope we'll have several more, at least 2 more videos coming up for you, if not 3. But this video here, well, we'll recap a little bit and remember that we tore this block down, and we found blown head gaskets on both sides. One of them venting to the outside, and another one's I found to be venting actually into a unused oil drain hole in the head, which was quite interesting to me, but I digress. The hole is there on the head and on the block, but it is not there on the gasket. And it had blown through there and was venting through there, in addition to the broken top ring on the right-hand cylinder. We've taken some time. We've really got our block cleaned up, along with our accessories and our back cover. We had a good time. We got our cylinder heads machined flat again, because they were well, at least the right hand one was extremely warped, and give you a little glimpse of that, what's to come. It was an interesting experience. And we also decked the top of the cylinders on the block, but that did not take much at all, and the spec is 1/1000th of an inch, and I checked it with a straight edge up and down, and it passed. So I've got a pile of parts at the office. I'm waiting on a set of new valves and lifters, which are coming on Saturday, and hopefully we'll get more video of us buttoning this thing up. But here, upcoming here is our video of how we mic everything out. Well, machinists will call miking it out. I'm no machinist. We're just measuring all our parts, comparing it to the service limits in the service manual, and we go from there to determine whether we want to scrap a part or recondition it or replace or reuse it. And that's what we're looking at in this video. So stay tuned. Thanks. All right, we're set up here at our block. It's been slightly cleaned up. We have no way of, well, I have no way of, proper way of measuring the bore of this motor. The cross hatching is about gone. It's certainly glazed, but I got no problem doing a hone. But what we are going to do is a halfway measure, just to see how close we are. We got our used rings here, So we are going to check our ring end gap, because that is something we can measure with feeler gauges. So you see I've stuck the ring down in there. This is the top compression ring, and we're looking at our right-hand cylinder now. I'm just going to use the piston to square it up. And we'll take our feeler gauges now on the top ring. The spec is 26 thousandths. So we're going to take a look-see and see. We have a 26 thousandths feeler gauge, and we're going to see if it fits. And it does not, so that's good news. We got somewhat of a bore, for sure. See where it's actually at. There's our 21. So that's what I suspect it is. Yes, sir. 21 thousandths on the top ring in the right-hand cylinder. So that's good news. Let's record that. Yeah, I know the fingernail's grody. Deal with it. That's our top ring. Okay, back to this is our second ring. And they're square. Okay, the second ring, the spec is 31 thousandths. So let's find 31. I suspect it's going to be a good bit less than that, given what we just seen. So let's start at 28 thousandths, which is smaller than the spec of 31. Okay, 28 fits. And there's 30 thousandths. 30 thousandths fits. I don't think I got a 31. There's a 32 thousandths. The spec is 31. So let's see. It does not really, nope, does not fit. So we're right at our service limit of 31 thousandths on the bottom ring. This is on the right-hand jug, so I can live with that considering we're putting new rings in it. I think we got room to work within this bore, and I think this bore was the worst just because it had the broken ring. Let's move over to the bench here, and I'm going to measure this other jug, and we'll move over to the bench and take some more measurements. Okay, here's another way to measure our bore without investing in our dial bore gauge, which I'd probably never use again. I bought this little set of calipers here. There's a few other things in the set for $10 at Harbor Freight. And you know what? I think they'll do just fine going along with their cheap micrometers that I got. So what we do here is we stick it down in the bore, and we look for our widest spot, which is pretty much always going to be at right here near the bottom and right here near the bottom, where the piston skirts rub whenever it turns around at the bottom of its stroke. So let's see here. We just kind of do it by feel. The camera's in my way, so it's not making life very easy. But they're spring loaded, and I'm just looking for a tighten it up until you get a little slack, and let's see, help if it's in there square. Yeah. So you just want to be drag, because this has a spring in it. You just want to be dragging just a bit when you take this measurement. That feels about right. So we don't touch our little screw here. I take this out, and we're going to step over to the bench, and we'll take our measurement with a 2 to 3 inch micrometer. All right, so we're over here at the bench, and this here is a Harbor Freight cheap 2 to 3 inch micrometer. I've already wheeled it out here. You can see, focus on that, on 2.950 inches, or 2.950. Service limit is 2.964, so we need another 14, so we'll spin it out here. So 14, and we'll lock it there. And now we take our calipers, refocus, okay, which we took the measurement with. $52 actual measurement on the bore diameter. Service limit is 2.964. So our right one appears to be just a smidge out, probably from that broken ring, and our left comes out at 2.952. So I think we're gonna just hone it. We'll probably put some new. I'm gonna measure the pistons and see how much they're worn, but I don't think I am the value of the mower, and you think about the cost of machine work and cost of machine work and parts versus a new motor for it, which is I believe about $2,300. So we gotta keep this reasonable and yet get hopefully another 1,200 hours out of this motor before we call it quits. So we'll be back and take some more measurements once I can get comfortable here in the bench. Some easier measurements, pistons and valve diameters and so on and so forth. Alright, so here's where we're at. I actually went back and remeasured the right-hand bore diameter and measured it at 2960. So that is within our spec of 2964, within the service limit by 4 thousandths, which in bore diameter, that's not too bad. And keep in mind, that is the widest part of the bore that I found. We will check our piston diameter, and we're going to go down our list of everything that's important to this motor and important to me. The crank pin diameter, crank pin width, the big end of the connecting rods, both their width and their inside diameter, the valve stems. Do we need new valves at $25 a piece? It's a good question. We've already checked ring gap earlier. Told us a little bit. So that's where we are headed. We shall continue. All right, let's do a few measurements here on our on our pistons and rods, the ones we can do tonight. I'm going to start with the piston diameter, which is measured, the manual says 0.9 inches up from the bottom of this skirt. Basically, they want to at the heaviest wear point here. You know, you can see a little scuffing there. This side's a little cleaner, but let's see, this one has its oil ring. So this is the left hand number 1 piston. We'll take our dial caliper, and our service limit is 2952. So let's take a look, see. So that is a piston diameter of 2957 on the left hand piston. So let's write that down, 2957. And we'll pull out a right hand one while we're in gutter caliper set up. Okay, so the right hand piston has a diameter of 2.960 inches. Inches. I'm not sure how accurate that is, considered our bore diameter is 2.960. Yeah, on that cylinder, but hey, we shall see, I suppose. Okay, well, let's go. So both of those are, we've got 2.957 and 2.960. Those are both within the service limit of 2.952. That being said, I don't know. We shall see. I haven't decided, but I think just because we got a used bore that we're just honing, I'll probably just make things a little tighter, probably put a new set of standard size pistons in it. Just, I think it deserves that. We'll see if we got to spend money on rods. Speaking of rods, let's check our rod. Pull out our caliper and check our rod in diameter. Measure ink pen. And this one, yeah, this is the left end. And this connecting rod width is within spec. It's 808 thousandths. Okay, let's check the other one. Yeah, we're just going to call that 809 thousandths on the width on that rod. So that's with just literally thin spec of minimum is 805 thousandths. So now let's look see. We'll see if we can get the bore diameter on these. Actually, I'm going to pause the video because I'm supposed to torque them to spec beforehand. Alright, so we got our pistons. Our rod end caps torqued the spec of 87 inch-pounds. And we're going to tighten our caliper. Okay, I think we got it there. At 1575. Hmm. 1.575. This book is 1.5765. So either my measurements are incorrect, or we need to throw a set of rods at it, which I am willing to do. Absolutely. I got no problem with a set of rods. But I'll do the measurement on the other rod off camera so as not to bore people, and we'll come back tomorrow and take some more measurements, and we'll talk about the plan of action. Alright, we're here. We're going to measure our crank pin diameter. Oh God, it said it. The spec is 1572. It's the service limit. So we're set at 1575. I'll stick it on there, and it goes on. We shall see. This crank needs work. I don't feel like it's gonna. Okay, so that's 1572 is the service limit, so that's where we're at. I'm not paying that as crank machined. We will put a new rod on it. Not paying for nor waiting to have this crank machined. We're going to put a new set of rods on it, nice and tight. And we're going to switch to a 20W50 motor oil, because this mower is used in 95-degree heat, not 1030. I just hate to say it, as it says Well, I bragged on it in the first video until I broke out the fine instruments, and well, we got 1,200 hours in. It's been run hot, and I think we're going to do another video on adding accessory oil temp. I want an oil temperature and oil pressure gauge, and I think that can be done pretty cheap. That would be fun and neat. So we shall see. But crank is at the service limit, plus or minus. But I think we're going to throw a new set of rods. Pistons seem all right, but given the bores, new rods and pistons is where we're at on that. But I'll take some other measurements, see what other bearings and whatnot need to be replaced, and check on the valve train. I'll put the new valves in as well. But I am going to save these heads because I thought they were $212 a piece. They are actually $325 a piece. The only way you can buy them was with a full valve train, which is, well, that's unacceptable. So we're going to get ourselves something flat. We are going to mill them flat here at the house or in the shop, and we're going to have a bona fide farm rebuild, I do believe. I may have to order me one of those flex hone things. They're said to hone easier than those junk home things you get at the parts store, but to be continued. All right, guys, let's sum it up here. And yes, there's a cat behind me. There's another one in my lap too. I don't care. It's a shop. Shops can have cats. But anyhow, we got all our measurements taken, and I'll be putting them up beside my head here through the magic of YouTube. So our piston diameters, the service limit was 2,952. It's 2.952 inches. The actual measurements we had are 2,957 and 2,960. Those are both within spec. But in all honesty, since we're not, since we're having to hone the cylinder and open it up even more, even though it's just a tiny little bit for a hone, especially with a flex hone, I'm just not all that comfortable putting used pistons. And on top of that, pistons come standard as part of one of these master rebuild kits from a vendor where I sourced it. Now the bore diameter, the service limit is 2,964, and what we came up was 2,960. So, well, I had two measurements that we got. One was 2,952 and the other was 2,960. Those are the left and the right. Okay, so and the crank pin diameter. This was another key. It was tough because the service limit is 157.24, 5,724 10,000ths, 1.5724. And I think this Harbor Freight micrometer might have the ability to measure to the 10,000th, but I'm not so sure it'd be accurate anyhow, so I didn't look up how to actually measure it. But what I got was just 1.572. So we're at the service limit on the crank pin. Therefore, I could talk about the connecting rod big end diameter and the big end width and all that, but it doesn't matter. This motor's getting a new set of rods. just to keep the clearance as tight as possible between the connecting rods and the crank pin on the crankshaft, because there's an oil film in there that protects it. There's no actual bearing in most any crankshaft. The crankshaft itself is the bearing, so we need it to be as tight to service spec as possible. But let's move up the heads, because heads, shoot, they turned out to be an expensive proposition. They're really only sold with valves and an entire valve train. A head with valves, springs, retainers, locks, new push rods, new rockers, everything but the valve cover, but no lifters, of course. The new little cage to hold the push rods, which is almost always a perfectly serviceable part. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I digress. It's an expensive part, so we've done what we could to save these heads, and I'm saving that for an upcoming episode. I may throw a pickup here at the end just as a teaser. When we look at our valve stem diameters of 234 is a service limit, and I measured smaller with a dial caliper, but using these micrometers on intake valves, the service limit is 234 thousandths. I'll record a 236 on the left and 235 on the right. Okay, and let's see, the exhaust valve stem diameter is the service limit is 233 thousandths. We measured 235 on both left and right, so I was actually surprised at the uniform valve stem wear between left and right, considering the heat that the right side took, and the fact that it's dropped one of its valve guides a little bit. But we're gonna take care of that in a inexpensive non-machine shop way. Again, I didn't bother measuring the crank bearing diameter on the video or the flywheel side. We're not buying a new crank. Deere does offer, and we have required a replacement PTO side bearing that goes in the rear cover of the motor. And if I can get the old one out, I'll be certainly putting the new ones in. And we'll do what we can to keep this motor as tight as possible. But we're given the limits of we're not replacing a crankcase or a crankshaft at that point. You just buy a new motor. Okay. So, and ring gap, it's up there on the screen if you want to look at it. We talked about it in the video, earlier in the video. It was pretty good, considering this motor has 1,200 hours on it. I was pretty impressed with it. That being said, the bores themselves were, I have no doubt that they're not perfectly straight, and they're hogged out a bit at the bottom where the piston skirts have hit them. But this is what I guess folks used to call a farm rebuild, and we're gonna get a little bit more advanced and use a flex home instead of AutoZone home, which is a cool little dandy thing. But we got parts on order. I'll go ahead and talk about parts here. The master rebuild kit I've ordered. I think it was, I believe right, that was Sand Small Engine. Certainly not a sponsor. But hat tip to them for getting the order out to me quickly. They had it in stock. Their master rebuild kit includes all the gaskets needed to rebuild the entire engine. Comes with new pistons, new piston pins, new piston pin locks, new rings, of course. I also added new connecting rods, also from Sam's. And then, because we're reusing these expensive heads, and I don't have the instrumentation to measure the inside of the valve guides, I've elected to spend the roughly $105 to put new valves that, although the old ones were a few thousandths within spec, I'm confident the new ones will be much more in spec, and will give us a tighter seal. Because I'm going to show you something here. I want you to look here at this photo I'm going to put up to the right of me, I believe, through the magic of YouTube. And you'll look at these four lifters, and you look at normally this is a flat tappet engine. It just has a camshaft that each load pushes on each one of these lifters. And as the cam turns, these lifters actually turn. And you can see a circular pattern where it's turned over the life of the engine, however many millions or billions of times it's turned over. But you'll notice on the one on the bottom, it is hung twice, where it is sat there and not spun, and that cam has sat there and spun on top of that lifter, or Kawasaki calls it a tappet, which I suppose it is a tappet. We just call it lifters. That's what I'm used to. But regardless, I like to replace those along with the valves, just so we got the tightest clearances, and there's no way I was putting that lifter back in there. So I guess coming up in the next video will be our machine work on the heads, which shouldn't be a obnoxiously long video like this one. We'll probably have a whole lot more fast forward for you, but we'll keep some pithy commentary in there. But been a pleasure having you here. If you enjoyed the presentation here and like where we're going with the channel, please give me a comment down below, and hit the like and subscribe button, and hit that little bell button on your screen, and you'll be notified on your telephone as soon as I put a video up. Have yourself a good evening.